My name is Jillian Starowski. I'm a park ranger here in the interpretation division. I also co-manage our Park Service Horse Patrol program, and that is what has brought me into very close contact with Mr. Chris Clark, who is the lead mule packer for the National Park Service. So this afternoon, on Friday, February 22nd, I believe, here at Grand Canyon, we'll be having an interview with Mr. Chris Clark. All right, Chris, we'd like to get a feel for your personal background. Would you start by telling us about your family and where you grew up?
Well, I grew up in Williams, Arizona. I was born and raised there. I got into dealing with livestock with my Uncle Pat. He had a couple of horses, and he kind of put that in me. I rode them and just fell in love with it. Worked at a couple of ranches up around Williams and did construction and odd things like that. Got married young. Got 3 beautiful daughters, 2 grandkids, 1 on the way. And then I come up here and work for an outfit called Apache Stables out in Tucson doing dude rides. And that was kind of the start of my, I guess you want to call career or whatever. I took and worked there for a long time, and it was the first place I ever rode a mule. It's a pretty good story. My boss, I was pretty green. And I said, well, what am I going to ride? And he's pointed just over off in the direction, and here's this big old Appaloosa horse, big old spotted booger, good looking, big butt on him. And I was like, wow, he's pretty flashy. And he goes, you're not riding that, you're riding a mule. I said, I ain't riding no damn mule. And he said, well, you can either do that or you can walk. Well, as you can tell, I don't like to walk much. So I rode the mule. Her name was Patty, and she would greet me at the gate every morning, and she was just super solid and gentle, and that started my love affair with mules. And then I run a place up in Williams, 2 stables for John Moore up there. We were running around 60, 80 head of horses. I did that for a long time, but it would dry up during the winter. And so they said, well, come up to the mule barn for Xanterra. So that's where I met Ron Clayton. He's a good friend of mine. He's my mentor, really. I still talk to him every week. If I have a problem with a mule, he's the one I call. And I started with him doing the dude string and taking people down, and really enjoyed that. But after a while, it got old. I mean, same questions every day. But I had a chance to go to the pack barn for Xanterra. I had never packed in my life. I'd been out on camping trips, but I never packed any animals. And started over there green, and my first trip down, the packer over there, he always initiated his guys for the first time running down there. It was pitch black. I couldn't see my hand in front of my face, and we rolled off in the chimney. And yeah, it made my ass pucker. We rolled off in there. And I said, I can't see nothing. And I said, what do I do if we get in a wreck? He goes, oh, just listen. All right. Well, we rolled off in there, and I loved it. And I worked for them for a long time packing. I left, and then I come back. And then the gal who really taught me how to pack, her name was Melissa Williams. She's the one that got me a job at Park Service. She's a hell of a packer. Treated her mules good. Learned a lot from her. She left, and then I got offered a permanent job. If somebody told me I was going to be the lead packer of the Grand Canyon National Park, I'd have told them they were full of shit. There's no way. Excuse my mouth, I am a packer. I deal with mules. And that's where it started. And I mean, I never thought I'd have a career, and I dang sure didn't think I'd be up here at the park. I kind of got the brass ring. I'm truly blessed and grateful for everything I have. My wife down here videotaped me. Her name's Marisa. She's the love of my life. We live up here. I mean, I'm just blessed.
So you mentioned Melissa Williams is really the first person who taught you how to pack, and from the little bit that you've taught to me about packing, it's a it's beyond a skill. I would call it an art form. So could you describe what it was like learning that skill and how it might be different here at Grand Canyon versus packing somewhere else?
Sure. Learning from her, she was super fast. She'd kick my ass every morning. She'd have her string packed up and I was still tying hitches. I was like, I don't know how you do that. And I started watching her and I picked up little tricks and tips and I got to be as fast as she was. And packing in the canyon, I always say if you can pack in the canyon, you can pack anywhere. We set our saddles and everything different on our mules because we start off going downhill. They set further back on them. Your breechings are tight instead of having just a hand width in between them. A breeching is what goes around the ass of the mule and holds the saddle back. There's just a lot of different things that you have to do because if you set it wrong on your mules, you'll sore them up. And the most important thing, for me, being a boss at the pack barn, my guys and my mules come first. And that's how Ron taught me. He took good care of me, and that's what he taught. And, if you got sored up mules, you ain't making money. And it's mean to them, and I love them. They're like my kids. So you set your saddles up different in your hitches. My mules, the most I'll put on one is 160 pounds of product. And then when you add the saddle and the bags and lash rope and manning, it comes out just under 200 pounds. And I won't pack them over 160. There's no reason to. If you're up on flat country, you can back them up a little heavier, but, going in the canyon, there's no reason to.
So Melissa got you that position with the Park Service, and now you're just packing with the Park Service. Could you tell us the work that you do to support the trail crew? Because the mules are part of the trail crew of Grand Canyon National Park.
You bet. So anybody who works for Park Service, right now we're shut down. With all the term stuff that happened, I'm the only packer left. When I first started on here, there was 8 of us, and I'm the only one now. And so we're hoping we get some more positions hired on. I had some really good guys, and I hope they come back. But anybody who goes down in the canyon, we pack their clothes, food, whatever they need to do for the rangers, water department. Anybody who goes down in there, we take their stuff for them. And we also, as being part of the trail crew, we pack in food and tools for the trail crew. And just this last week, I was down trying to bust up a big rock a couple days ago. So we haul dirt in the canyon. I tell people that we haul dirt and they kind of laugh here at the bottom, but there's just rock down there. So we have dirt pits that are set up that we go in and we haul dirt and put dirt on the trail to make it nicer for the mules and the hikers.
Thank you. In doing this type of work with trail crew, what have been some of your most memorable experiences?
Like scary ones, or there's been a lot of them. Packing in the Grand Canyon, somebody told me one time it's hours and hours of sheer boredom with seconds of sheer terror. And that's the truth. Usually if you get in a bad wreck down there, something dies. Knock on wood, the whole time I've been here, I've never lost a mule. This is when I packed for Xanterra. I know down there at the bottom of the canyon, you come through the tunnel and you go across the Black Bridge. Well, I had a mule that hung up on the Black Bridge. And some of those mules were a little ornery, and you didn't want to go underneath the packs on the bridge, so I was up on the rail looking down at the river, going by my mules to cut one of my mules loose. So that was a pretty fun time. And that most of the time everything goes really good. You do everything you can to mitigate your stock. Your stock has to be good in the canyon. And you got to trust them, and you got to trust who you're packing with, because you never know when you're going to be hanging off the edge and you're going to need help. There's another fun time is this time of the year when you're riding down on ice. I was up at the top of the BA coming out one day. I was riding this mule named Joe, and she had lost a shoe, and that was one of the scariest rides I ever had coming out of the canyon. It was a front shoe, offside, and we got near the top. She didn't do it when we were lower. When you go in the canyon, it's scary as hell at the top, and it's scary when you're coming out. She kept going down on her front end, and the safest place you can be is in the middle of them, not on the ground. And so that was pretty scary, But I mean, I love riding in the canyon. It's always changing. People ask me, you get tired of the trail, and there's something always different down there. It's like a new adventure every time you go down. So,
You talked about mitigating those risks and those wrecks that you could have. How do you do that in the way that you pack the weight on, and how do you do that in how you pick what mule's your hand mule, who's your whip mule? How do you decide the order of your mules?
Okay, well, first off is we buy our mules from a mule broker up in Beatty, Oregon. He's the one that gets a contract, and he guarantees them for a year. If I don't like the color on them, I can call him and send them back. We go up there, he'll have 20 head. He kind of's got an idea what I like, and he'll have 20 head, and we'll ride through them, and we'll whittle it down to the ones that we want. And when you first start a mule in the canyon, you have 5 mules in your hand. So you have your hand mule, your second, third, fourth, and your whip mule. Your hand mule, you put a new mule there so you got control over them. But after you get them going, you want your most steady mule in your hand. That way, if you get into a wreck and you got to go back and take care of something, the other mules, they break off. We have breakaways that we put on, so if a mule does go off, it doesn't drag the whole string. You don't tie them hard and fast. And you want your faster mule in the back, because that's why they call them a whip, because they whip them around switchbacks. So you want something that ain't gonna. A lot of mules are really smart, and when they're too smart, they get in trouble because they get to playing around. I got one of my string. His name's Poncho. He runs third or fourth. And if I can keep him back there, he's got to keep going so he don't get in no trouble. But he'll go up and start biting the mule's hocks in front of him, just playing. He's just dumb. I've cussed at him a lot. I try to keep it down on the trail because I work for Park Service, but I've cussed that mule a bunch. But your second mule is one that if he's kind of iffy, so he's right there if you got to get a hold of him. And then your third, fourth, and fifth mule are the ones you want to put a little trust in. You don't want one, if he breaks away, he's going to head home. I had mules when I worked for Xanterra that did that, and I don't like to hike. So you want to put some pretty solid mules back there, further back in the string.
I have to ask, you mentioned Poncho. Do you have any funny or silly stories about Poncho?
Yeah, well, we were hauling dirt down at the bottom of the canyon. We were fixing up campsites down there at Phantom Ranch. And I took 6 head of mules, and I was going to leave one in the crowd. And Poncho's pretty good. I left some feed for him and stuff. So we took off for our day to go haul dirt. Well, we were at the dirt pit, and here comes this lady squalling. There was a crazy mule loose. Well, it was Poncho. He didn't like being left there. I figured usually he's all right, but that day he wasn't. So there's a round corral down there is rock, and it's got bars that go across, and there's about that much room in between the bars. Well, there was a lady that watched Poncho, and he'd watched us, I guess, climb over the rail. Because there was a big rock. He stepped on that rock, got in there, and he got wedged in between the bar and the deal. I didn't see none of this. This lady was like hysterical about it. She said he was biting and crazy, and he was just Poncho. Well, that sorry booger, he got through there all the way. He broke the concrete and lifted the pipe and got through and come running up. So, I took off, and here I'm at a high lope coming down through Phantom Ranch telling people, excuse me, in the politest way I can. And here comes Poncho, and so I had to tie him on, and he went with us, and he was happy. And I was just trying to give him a break, but yeah, that's Poncho. That's why he's in my string. I won't put him with nobody else. If he gets away from me, he'll run away. He'll get just a far. Oh, he'll get just a far ahead enough where you can almost catch him, and then he'll run off. And it's just a mule game to him. He runs off doing a mule laugh. But he's a good mule. I wouldn't trade him for nothing in the world. He's for sure entertaining.
I wanted to talk a little more about packing, and now in your role as the lead packer, you will have kind of staff coming in and out. You've been here for
6 years.
6 years. Do you have certain skills that you like to teach those who come here to Grand Canyon that you've picked up over the years that, you know, this has to be done a certain way?
Yeah. When we saddle, everything is the same. Everybody ties the same knots. Everything is done. Everybody does the same thing. And it's same with tying our hitches. That way, if you get in a wreck down the canyon, you know exactly where to go. You know, if you got a lot of times you'll have a mule, if they go on their side, you got to be able to jerk their saddle off, you know, and get everything. And if this guy's tying this knot this way and this guy's doing it this way, you just might as well get out your knife, start cutting rope. But yeah, that's one of the big things. And you know, another thing with nobody can be beaten to my mules. You know, for sure, every once in a while, one needs a kick in the belly. If you guys ever come over to the corral and watch them stand around and kick each other with metal shoes on with tungsten on them and they're not putting holes, me kicking them in with the toe of my boot ain't hurting them. A lot of folks that ain't around stock don't understand that. They think that's cruel, but you know, I've been around enough. I know I ain't gonna hurt them. They just straighten up for you. But that's another big thing is those mules have got to trust you too down in the canyon. I had a guy that was here. He didn't work for me. We worked with him though, and he was bad about beating a mule in the head. And I didn't find out till after he's gone, because if I'd have found out, I'd have whooped his ass. Park service or not. You just don't be mean to mules. But you get down there, if you got to get a hold of one, you know, and if they're scared of you, they're going to turn away and they can knock you out over the edge. And you know, there's a lot of times, it seems like it always happens when you have something going on. It's at a 1,000-foot cliff and you're looking over the edge and you're going, be good. So you want to make sure that, you know, that's another big thing is you got to treat them mules right.
Could you tell us a little bit about the mules in your string now, your riding mule and the 5 that you like to take down into the canyon?
Yeah, my ride mule's Ebby. She was one of the only mules that I got that I thought I was going to have to send back. She was really hot, scared of rocks. Well, the canyon's full of rocks. But I really cared for this mule. I rode her up in Oregon, and I said, she's going to make her riding mule. And I kept her, and she sure has. I took her to the Rose Bowl. I was in the Rose Bowl parade. That was a memorable experience. That was fun. And then my hand mule, I got this new hand mule that I'm working in. Her name's Sadie. I like black mules. I guess that comes from when I worked for Xanterra. My first ride mule that I rode, she was 4 years old, and nobody had rode her. And I got to ride her and get her used to the canyon, and I've just loved black mules since. Sadie is 6, and she's gonna make a hand mule. She's super gentle, she's super brave, not a lot phases her. Then I got Nocco, he's my other riding mule, and he runs second in my string. He's a super good mule too. And then I got Nocco, he's a big old yellow mule. And he's like Poncho a little. He bites a mule in front of him and plays and walks on the edge and scares the hell out of you. And I wanted to ride him because he's a big mule, but God, that bugger will beat your guts out of you. Yeah, he's got such a hip swing to him, it just throws my damn back out. And then I got Poncho, a black and white mule, and then I got Junior. And Junior is, if I got to go down in the canyon, I went down the other day, and since it's just me, I had somebody hiking with me, but I took him and this other mule named Chester. I mean, they're just that solid where they'll stand. They stood all day while we were busting on that rock. So did Debbie. I love my mules. I mean, they're amazing.
And I can attest to Nocco's goofiness. I've seen that, and he scared the crap out of me. So we've talked about the mules extensively. We talked about packing. I'm sure everyone wants to know why mules. In the past, we have used burros and horses in the canyon, historically since the 1890s, but why mules? What's so special about them to use them here in the park?
Well, the miners used to use burros. They were smaller because a lot of the trails were narrower, and they're hardy. Burros are tough. I mean, that's where you get a mule is from a horse and a donkey. And they're a desert animal. I mean, a donkey can get fat on air. And that's what the mules that makes them tough. Their bone structure is a lot stronger. Their feet are tough. They can handle the elevation change. I mean, we'll go from being up here on the rim, we go down to Phantom, and sometimes when we get down there, it's 120 degrees in the shade. If you did that with a horse a ton, you're going to kill them. I mean, I'm sure there's horses. I don't want to offend any of my horse people. I'm sure there's horses that could do it, but it'd sure be hard on them. We can get down there and we let our mules cool off a little bit, and you can just kick them out and feed them, and they go to water. Horse did that, they're going to colic up on you and die. They're just amazing animals. And everybody, I always hear they're stubborn. A mule's not stubborn. They're very smart. They're smarter than a horse. They won't do something if they think it's going to hurt them. You could beat that mule to death. You're not going to push him over that edge. I could whoop a horse over an edge. That mule, he's not going to do it. Not usually. But yeah, Roni, he's not scared of the edge. But they're a lot of times to get a mule to do something, you have to make it their idea. If you push on them and push them, and it just ain't gonna work. You gotta outsmart the mule, and they're pretty smart. So that's why we use mules.
And
Excuse me.
kind of these traits you're talking about, their wit, their intelligence, is that something you pick up on when you go ride them in Oregon? What you had mentioned, you ride 20 of them and you pick 5 or 6. What about those 5 or 6 makes you want to take them back to the canyon?
The first thing I look at on a mule or a horse is their eye. That saying, what eyes are the window to the soul? That's true in a mule. You want something that's got a real kind, gentle eye. You don't want what I call a pig eye, where their eyes are huge when you walk up to them and you got white. You want to steer clear of them because they'll kill you. And I like to put the guy that we get our mules from. He sets up these obstacle courses because he knows what we have to do. I mean, you can't replicate the canyon, but he tries his best. I mean, he's got a bridge he built at his house and over a creek and make sure that they can get across and stuff. And you want something that's kind of curious. Like if you throw stuff out, if you get one that runs over in the corner away from it, you don't want them. It's going to take too much time. But if they're coming up sniffing different things in the corral that you throw in, that's the kind that you want because they're a little braver, a little bit more sure of themselves. Because, I've had mules that I thought were just going to do great, and they see that hole, and they're like, holy shit. We're not going in there, that's scary. And, and those take a little bit more time. But that's what I mainly look for. And then, of course, conformation and how they look. Mules are different from horses. They don't have withers. That's right up above their shoulders in the front. And it's where your saddle sits good, where it comes like this. Most mules are real flat backed. And it's hard to get a saddle. That's why you have to use a breeching on them so the saddle doesn't slide up on their neck. I try to buy that has more prominent withers to them, more of a horseback to them. I try to get that because if you get I've had a few flat back mules in the canyon, it's just hard on them. It rubs their butt and takes the hair off and stuff. So if you can get their conformation more to hold the saddle, the better off the mule is.
What, in your experience, has been the scariest part of the canyon for your mules, for your new mules?
The top.
Just the top?
Rolling in there, yeah. When I worked for Xanterra, Ron put me on this big old, I was full of myself, thought I was it, and I wasn't. Learned a lot since then. I was riding this big red mule named Rastus, and I'd been riding him and following the dude strings in, and big old young mule. He was 4, and Ron said, he goes, I want you to lead out on that mule down at Phantom Day. And I said, all right. Hell, I'm young and strong. I can do it. I ain't scared. That booger scared the hell out of me. We started in, and I had two little girls behind me and a mom, and I'll never forget it. We were right at the top of the BA, and we were rolling in, and it was like that first time that booger had ever seen the hole. And he sucked his ass and went backwards. Well, you take and if you, the mule's running backwards with you spur him, he goes backwards faster. He's not like a horse where you can get him to go forward. Well, he spun around and he dropped his two hind legs off the top of the BA. And I'm sitting there, and trust me, the only reason I was still there was because I was scared to death. And I was whooping that mule and spurring him, and that was another time that I knew how strong a mule was. He pulled himself back up on that canyon. I mean, his feet was purchased. But if he'd went off there, you know, you're going to die. And he sucked back through and got in behind these two little girls that was behind me and was off, and then he jumped back on the trail. Well, Ron saw what happened and turned around and took us back up, and I was white as that paper right there. He goes, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Well, I almost died." He goes, "Oh, you're fine." And I said, "No, I almost died." He goes, "I saw it. You were fine. You were a long ways from dying." So I said, "I ain't riding." And this is what I told him. I said, "I ain't riding that son of a bitch down lead. I ain't doing it." And he goes, "Yeah, just follow drag." And I didn't want to do that. But we did, and he was all right. And he ended up making a mule, but, you know, that was... Yeehaw!
That sounds terribly exciting. What for you is the most exciting thing about working at Grand Canyon as a mule packer? What excites you about your job?
I mean, I'm doing something that I love to do. I mean, don't tell nobody, but because I do work my ass off, don't get me wrong. But I mean, I'm on vacation every day. I get, you know, I just get to take care of my mules, and I mean, I live at the Grand Canyon. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, that's where, I mean, I'm just blessed. I get to do a job that I love to do. I love to come to work. And I'll tell you, the longest job I ever did was 2.5 years. I got bored with it, and I'd pick it apart and get pissed, and I'd quit. I've been here for 6, and I love to get up and come to work every day, you know, and I mean, it's, yeah. Some
Not a
days,
cold weather fan.
Yeah, I should have been in the desert, like a donkey. But I mean, it's just riding in that canyon's amazing, you know. And don't get me wrong, it's an adrenaline rush too. You know, I love that part of it too. I mean, if I didn't, I wouldn't do it. Anybody who says they ride in that canyon and don't get scared, they're full of shit. I don't care how handy you are. That booger's scary. So yeah, I mean, it's just a wonderful place to live, you know. Me and my wife, we've got our own business, and she's able to work from home. And it's, I mean, I couldn't ask for anything better. I'll be here until I can't tow a stirrup. So.
You mentioned a few times you're not a big hiker. Have you ever done any hiking in the canyon?
Once. It's the top 10. It's on that top 10 dumbest thing I ever did list. It's like 3rd. When I was in high school, I played ball and football and baseball, and I was in pretty good shape. Well, we decided our teachers took us into the canyon. Well, I was with a bunch of buddies, and we hiked down the river and back. And I thought I was going to die. Every time I looked up, it just got further away. And I have hiked in the canyon, you know, when we're hauling dirt and stuff like that, but it's short hikes. It burnt me. It really did. You know, I didn't think I was ever going to get out of here. I thought I could. We left at dark and got out at dark. Yeah, so yeah, you guys have all the fun in the world hiking. That's why I can ride every one of my mules in my string. I ain't hiking out.
You do have a whole messaging about how you're not supposed to do that. So yeah, how does that change your perspective? Because most of us, I'm sure, I've had the privilege of riding down on a mule to the bottom. and it was drastically different from hiking. Could you kind of explain what is that like to experience the canyon from the back of a mule?
You know, I think it's better. I mean, I think to me that's the only way to see the canyon. You know, I mean, I see people hiking on that trail all the time, and you know, they look pissed off. They just, you know, they come out and going down there all happy and yeehaw, we're at the Grand Canyon coming out. Me and my mules are sons of bitches when they have to stop, and it's seriously, I've been called that. You know, when you're riding a mule in the canyon, you don't have to look at your feet. You get to look around and actually take in the beauty of the canyon. You know, because I mean, I've seen some fit people coming out that it's no problem, but I've seen people that are coming out, they're not enjoying themselves. They're probably thinking it was the dumbest thing they ever did, just like I did when I was hiking it. To me, that's the only way to see the canyon, because you can really take it in and see the beauty in it, you know, where you're not just beat down, tired, and hating life. You'll be sore. If you don't ride, you better have some Bengay and get ready. I took a lot of folks down there on Xanthera, and they come out and they had the best trip they ever had, but they were sore. So,
what parts of the canyon do you and your crew cover with the mules? What trails and what type of work do you do on the trails?
We do the North Kaibab, South Kaibab, Bright Angel. We've got a project in this year to go from Indian Gardens over to Hermit to supply that bathroom, so that'll be an overnight trip. If I can get a mule on it, I'll go. You know, yeah. You bet. If I can get them down there, by golly, I'm going. But we here pretty quick when the North Rim opens up, we always go over to North Rim Opener and we haul tools down to clear rock slides on there, on the north side. We try to do, when I have a crew, we try to do at least 4 trips rim to rim. I've done that. The north side's way more scary than the BA or South Kaibab. There's some tight stuff over there, but it's fun. But we'll cover wherever they want us to go. So.
And after experiencing all of that, do you have a favorite place in Grand Canyon?
I do, the Narrows, down just past Indian Gardens. There's a lot of Indian history down there, and to me, it's one of you got the creek running through there, and you're looking down on it. It's just one of the prettiest places I've seen in the canyon. Yeah, that's my favorite place to go, is down through the Narrows. You got the creek crossings, and then you hit the corkscrew, and then you go into hell.
So we're at the centennial year. You've done some really exciting things with the Rose Parade, doing that. What do you look forward to most about continuing your work with the Park Service and Trail Crew?
Just continuing to keep a safe program going. I'd love to get my guys back. I had 4 guys that worked for me, Max, Ed, and Sherwin. I had back surgery, I think it was a couple years ago. They replaced a disc in my back, and so I was down. I was still coming to work, but I wasn't getting to pack, and those guys took good care of my mules. I didn't have to worry about them. And just building a good pack program back up and doing that stuff and packing. Right now I do my best to try to keep the mules laid up as best I can right now. It's just me. So I do a lot of riding on the rim and stuff. I believe that I get paid to ride mules on the rim. That's pretty awesome. But yeah, get the program built back up. The whole trail crew. When I started, we had 50 people. Because I'll tell you this, I'm proud to wear the Park Service uniform. When I worked for Xanthera, they cussed Park Service horrible. Said, oh, you're going to the dark side, whatever. This is the best job I have ever had in my life. It's like Disneyland. I wished I'd have got on here when I was 19 or 20 years old. It's amazing. When I started with Trail Crew, we had 50 people just on Trail Crew. We had 10 people on compost, and then we had 8 packers. Well, we're down to 5 of us, because of these term jobs and hiring and stuff like that. And I want to see that get built back up. And, I'm fortunate I get to be a part of that and see it built back up the way it should be. They're finding out now there's rock slides everywhere, and it's hard to do with just 2 people. So that's what I'd like to see, is it get built back up like it should be, and then be proud to work for it, you know.
Yeah, I want to thank you personally for all the work that Trail Crew does and that you and your mules do, because we wouldn't have these trails to hike on. Our staff down in the canyon wouldn't have their supplies. I mean, the inner canyon runs on Trail Crew.
Thank you.
So what you guys do is incredible, and I really hope that you get your team back together again. That would be excellent.
Yeah.
Chris, I was curious, would you be willing to take any questions from the audience?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Chris, I'm with you. If I'm going on a trail, in the days when I could ride, it was Mule.
Yes, sir.
But one of the things that I've enjoyed around here from time to time, and it's been a while, used to love to listen to Ron brief the dudes going down.
Yes, sir.
And watch the look on their faces. My God, what am I doing here?
You bet.
Okay,
You bet.
I'd like to hear you brief. I think these folks would like to hear you brief the dudes.
Oh.
Can you do that?
I did. You know, when Ron, he would do his speech, and I always did my own little thing when I got them in, just to get, you know, kind of personable with them. And I used to make people stand on one foot and hop. And I told them, if you can't do that, there is no reason in the world for you to be going in the canyon. If you aren't athletic enough to stand there and hop on one foot, you shouldn't be going, you know. And I was kind of ornery with them, you know. And it wasn't because I wanted to be mean to them. It was just because I wanted them to know what they were getting into. It wasn't just a dude right up on the rim. You're going into hell, you know. You're gonna, and I'd tell them, I'm not here for your entertainment. I'm not a clown. I'm here to get you in and out of the Grand Canyon safe and alive. And I said, hopefully we can have a good time along the way. Yeah, I guess I was kind of mean to him. Yeah, it was. But, you know, I'd start off with that, and I'd tell him what we were going to do. You know, I mean, Ron, he bless his heart. God, that bugger. It was July, and he sent me down. I had some folks with me. Not one of them was under 75. And it was midsummer, hot. I mean, it was running 120, 125 down a canyon. And I asked him, I said, I don't want to take him. I don't want to kill him. And he goes, you'll be all right. All right. You know, and I tried to get him not to go. By God, they made it. They were all hanging over the saddle horn when we rolled into Phantom, and I called in, and that last mile, I said, we're coming in hot. And, you know, but we got to Indian Gardens, and we'd always stop for lunch. I didn't even get them off their mules. I fed them lunch, and on their mule, wet them down, and we rolled. And they made it, and they had a great time. But, I mean, that was the biggest thing with me when I was taking people, was that I really wanted them to know what they were getting into. Because once you get down there, that's a hell of a hike out, you know, and I ain't going to turn around and give you one of my mules to hike out. So that's what I would tell them, that they were riding off into hell.
This has been a great talk, great experience.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Can you tell us a little bit about the age of the mules when you acquire them, and how long they serve, and then what becomes of them after their days are over?
You bet. We try to get our mules between 6 and 8 years old. We already want them broke. You know, trying to break a mule in the canyon ain't the best time to do that. And I run my mules till they're 17. I'm sure I get some more years out of them, but by God, I get a retirement after Park Service, so should they. You know, I won't run my mules till they're broke down. I want them to go to a good home where, if, you know, they get used a little lightly. A lot of times we'll send them to other parks, you know, where it's not as hard as packing in the canyon. We do adopt them out to rescues. I'll line people up ahead of the time that I know that I can look at and know that they're good folks, and tell them that I'm sending these mules to rescue, and then they'll come in and donate how much ever to take the mules.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, ma'am.
I'm Helen, and I'm a Park Service volunteer in the Inner Canyon, so I'm very appreciative of your hard work, so I don't have to carry all my stuff down when I'm volunteering.
Thank you.
But just the timeline, I didn't get to, you've been working for the Park Service for 6 years.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
Ron Clayton left about 2005, so you've been at Grand Canyon for quite a long time and with the Apache Stables. I don't think people realize how long you've actually been working at Grand Canyon.
You know, it's funny, the canyon draws me back. I'd leave. I work construction. I help remodel and do plumbing on the Red Feather Lodge. Worked at Apache Stable, so I've probably been off and on up here at the canyon over 20 years. I love it, you know. Like I said, I did that remodel at Red Feather, and then when they built a new building, I helped plumb that, and then I got on with Apache Stables after that, and then I got on with Xanterra. And I worked for Xanterra twice. I think 2 or 3 years each time, something like that. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm a walker, and we all know in the hiker community there's some people who would like to see mules off the trails. I'm not one of those.
Good.
What do you have to say about I'd like to hear what you have to say about the coexistence between, walkers and riders and mules.
You know, most folks that are in the canyon are pretty nice to deal with. You know, they understand. You know, a lot of times I don't know how many times I say today, you need to go to the inside. You know, and I'd rather have somebody squished against the wall or fall 1,000 foot to their death. Most folks are pretty nice. You get your jerks. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've had people, and as I've gotten older, before I just get pissed off. As I've gotten older, I see, you know, because I usually when they're hiking out is when they're rude. They're hot and they're tired and they're mad. Like I said, most hikers are pretty good. I think since I work for the Park Service, you know, since I put on that patch, you have to be a little bit more friendly and kind than when you worked at Xanterra. I think I've only had to yell at 2 or 3 people the whole time I've been here, you know, and that was because they were just being stupid, you know, where they were endangering me or my stock. You know, you can tell people not to touch them. You know, our mules are gentle, but if they ain't used to somebody reaching out to touch them, they try to touch them, and you're looking, you know. You ask them nice once and maybe twice. After that, I'll sure enough raise my voice with them. But for the most part, most folks are pretty good. And, you know, and for anybody that hikes, this is a terrible story. So when I worked for Xanterra, though, back when I was younger, I had a little hand mule. His name was Zeke. He was a little fat black mule. He did not like hikers. So I was coming into Phantom, and I was hauling hay. We used to haul bales of hay down there to feed the mules. And there's this lady, she's in her little running outfit and everything. She's standing on the liner rocks. And I told her, I said, ma'am, please step off the rocks. And she's standing there running in place. And, you know, and she says, I do this all the time, and I know what I'm doing. And I said, ma'am, please step off the rocks. My mules are pretty wide, and they'll knock you down in the ditch. And she goes, you just need to go on. So I said, all right. So I whistled my mules up. Well, old Zeke put her in the ditch. And so I whistled my mules and rolled up and told her, have a good day. You know, I mean, you know, stuff like that happens. But for the most part, I mean, that's probably one of our most dangerous parts of our job. Because I can pass 1,000 people on the trail. And that's 1,000 different personalities. You know, and you get some, and I don't think anybody has ever tried to hurt you. You know, there was a guy on Chaz, this kid that worked for Xanterra. He was their lead packer. They had their mules going through, and a guy had an umbrella and started opening it right in the middle of the string, trying to scare his mules. You know, yeah, stuff like that you don't tolerate. Yeah, for the most part, I think we all get along. You know, I hear a lot of complaining about the mule poop on the trail and everything else. Well, during winter, it's traction, you know. So, and I'm sure those people that are sitting there going in them toilets, because we haul the trash out and we haul the toilet paper, and I'm sure they're thankful for when they're wiping their ass that the mules are in there. So, you know, but for the most part, I think most folks are pretty good.
Well, thank you so much, Chris.
bet,
We're
you bet.
going to wrap up.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you also for the excellent questions. We're going to take a short break and we'll regroup at 3:35. I have one short announcement before you head out. A key card has been turned in, so if you've lost your hotel key card, we'll have that up here. Thanks.
Thank you, folks. Have a great day.